Oh my gosh, this whole time I forgot to turn on the mic. Hey gang, how's it going? I'm Todd Nauck. Welcome to my art live stream. That's so frustrating. I'm so not used to having this new mic here that I keep forgetting to turn it on. Oh my gosh, and y'all are probably saying no sound yet. Sorry, without my glasses on, I can't read the, I'm so excited to get into coloring this, Iron Man that I totally forgot to, turn on my mic. That's so funny. I do this all the time. I'm going to have to write a note for myself. Todd, turn on mic before going live. Oh, my goodness. You know, it's been like over a month since probably close to, it's almost a month. Over 3 weeks. I've lost track of time. I'm never good with keeping up with what time is going on. What time is going on? I'm not even good with my sentences right now. Sorry, gang, just a little bit flustered there that I forgot to turn on the mic. I'm so disappointed. Hey, gang, welcome to my art live stream. 100 art live streams here on my YouTube channel. This is my 100th art live stream here on YouTube. If you want to catch what I was saying before I remembered to turn on the mic, go check out my IGTV feed over on my Instagram account. You can see, or you can hear what I was saying in regards to this background that I'm starting here with first. Doing the background first so that it has time to dry. I want it to have time to dry. I'm gonna kind of tilt our board here and let some of this paint kind of run and pool in some different places, kind of dab in some lighter areas. So I'm doing the background first. Background colors first, so I can come in and I can tech it out. Cannot believe I forgot to turn on the mic here on YouTube. At least Instagrammers, you got to hear what I had to say. We'll start taking some questions here in just a moment. I'll be taking questions from both YouTube and the Instagrams. So I'll probably edit out the beginning of the YouTube one where I didn't have sound on, so that when you come back to watch, you're not just wondering, hey, what's going on? So if you just tuned in here and watching on YouTube in the rewatch here, if you just discovered the video, yeah, I forgot to turn on my microphone. I've done this probably half of my live streams I've done here on YouTube with this new setup. I've forgotten to turn on the mic. I even remembered, Todd, make sure you turn on the mic before you hit the go live button. And then I saw that it was time to go live, freaked out, hit the go live button and forgot to turn on the mic. Okay, enough of that. I'm not gonna beat myself up over forgetting to turn on the mic anymore. We're gonna focus on the art and focus on your questions. Just gonna dab in a little more. Just dab in some dark areas here. Trying to be careful where the water is, or the paint is pooling, so it doesn't get too clumpy in any one area. I think this is gonna work here. I think we've got just about what I want. A little more blue on this side here. A little bit more of the green, and then we'll just let this kind of dry. I don't like how this is pooling over here. My table is at a little bit of an angle, so it is going to kind of gravitate towards the bottom of the section there. So yeah, all right, let's take some questions here. Let's grab one. I just looked into my light and blinded myself. Oh man, what are some of the steps I'd recommend for practicing anatomy? Draw from real life whenever possible. That's really going to help with accuracy of your life drawing. Look into life drawing books as well. Bern Hogarth is the one I learned from in art school. That was the one my life drawing instructor taught from. There's Andrew Loomis, there's George Bridgman. Those are probably the top 3. I'm sure there are a lot of other great ones out there, but those 3 are like longtime legends in the anatomy sort of artwork game. So those would be my suggestions. Let's see. You're loving my hair, digging the Nightwing aesthetic. Yeah, it is a little bit Nightwing. I also feel it's like a little bit Bart Allen. I've not had a haircut since early March. You know, pre-COVID-19, stay at home, shelter at home. So yeah, this is, I have not had my hair this long in like over 10 years. And yeah, I feel it's more of a Bart Allen aesthetic, but I definitely will accept Nightwing as well. But yeah, thank you so much. So let's see, as this is starting to dry here, I see one little area here I want to just kind of blend in together a little bit. Okay. We're going to start working on the reds, the red parts of Iron Man's armor. Just want to make sure that none of the reds bleed into the background colors. Just take the paper towel, and you can kind of wipe away, and it kind of pulls away some of the paint, and you can kind of create some lighter areas. Don't want to do it too much though. Don't want to do that too much. It can jack up your illustration if you do it too much. Then you have to layer in more color back and forth. Now, something that I feel about watercolor is that it wants to do what it wants to do. It's an exercise in letting go of control. I might have said that in other YouTube, any of my other YouTube watercolor videos, is you got to learn to kind of let go of control. The more you try to control watercolor, the more likely it is to become a mess. So it kind of teaches you kind of some new skills, new ways of thinking to keep the to get the watercolor to kind of do what you want to do, but you also kind of have to keep in mind it's like herding cats. It's not like 100% control. So it's actually a good exercise for me actually to let go of control. All right, so I think we've got enough the background's dry just enough that I can start painting in the colors for Iron Man. Now I'm going to start with some orange, or it's kind of a reddish orange that I'm going to build to darker reds. I like an orange because it will give a warmer effect to the highlights, to the lighter areas. I'm just going to start to dab this in. I'm leaving the outer rims of his fingers there white for now, as kind of like this bright white highlight. It's so shiny that it is white there. Now we've got his repulsor rays here. So what I want to do is come in with some yellow here. Just a little bit of yellow to blend in with these oranges. So it kind of starts to create this glowing effect is what I'm shooting for. So as you see, while the paint is still wet, you got a hair from the brush that's fallen out, or is that my eyelash? Some people put blood, sweat, and tears into their artwork. I put blood, sweat, tears, and eyelashes into mine. Just some yellow through here, leaving it kind of white, leaving the white of the repulsor ray open right there in the center as the hottest part of the repulsor ray. Not the repulsor way is the repulsor ray. This is the ray. So just working the yellow in to that wet reddish orange, and it starts to create this kind of hot glow, which was the name of my garage band back in high school, the Hot Glow. We did a lot of 80s covers, new wave stuff. All right, so back to this kind of reddish orange. And I am going to come over this orange, with this reddish orange, with more traditional red, working light to dark. And we'll address some questions here. We'll check in with you Instagrammers here in just a sec. Watercolor does require a lot more of my attention because remember I said it's like herding cats. And if I take my eyes off the cats for too long, I'm going to make mistakes. it might get away from me. So it does require a bit more of my attention than say Copic markers do, because the Copic marker color doesn't run like watercolor does. Let's see, it looks like some questions have come in on the grams. What kind of paper do I use? I'm using 140-pound cold press Strathmore watercolor artboard. It's a 9-inch by 12-inch artboard. All right, so we got those shoulder pads here. There was another question here on Instagram. How did I present myself for a studio? What I did was I took my portfolio of my comic book art, my sequential art samples, to comic book conventions, and I showed them to editors. That was kind of where I kind of started with trying to get my work out there. And from there, I started to make some contacts. And when I broke in, it was kind of like the early to mid 90s. So Image Comics was brand new. And people like Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Rob Liefeld, they were having talent searches looking for new young talent. That's where they found people like J. Scott Campbell, David Finch, Michael Turner, and Rob Liefeld. That's where he discovered me. He discovered me in his my artwork was submitted into his talent search by some friends of mine who showed my mini comics to an artist who worked for Rob Liefeld. He liked them, took them back, showed them to Rob. Rob liked them. And then like 2-3 days later, I got a phone call saying, we saw your mini comics. We think they're cool. I want you to come work for me. And about 3 months later, I packed up, moved to California, and was working in Rob Liefeld's studio. If you don't know who Rob Liefeld is, he's the guy who created Deadpool. And he had a studio called a studio called Extreme Studios at Image Comics. And I was hired to work for him back in the mid-1990s. Then from there, I went on to work at DC Comics, doing a series called Young Justice, the original Young Justice that they later based the cartoon on. And then from there, I moved on to work for Marvel, and I've been at Marvel for the past many years. All right, we'll take another question here from YouTube. Let's see. Oh, you don't want me to edit out the beginning of this live stream where I didn't have the microphone on, because you'll lose live comments and the beginning of the coloring. That's definitely something I'll keep in mind. Sorry, Instagrammers, a phone call tried to come in just then. Might have interrupted the Instagram stream. So I am leaving a little bit of the white of the board here on Iron Man's, like the upper part of his chest, just as highlights. So with watercolor, you do have to kind of take your time. It's not something you can really rush, or at least I don't feel I can really rush it, at least yet. I want to make sure that I'm being mindful of what I'm doing and the color I'm placing onto the board. Let's see. Any tips in drawing comic book style while using real life photos? You mean shadows and halftones? Well, let's see, what advice would I give? Great question. When it comes to drawing comics, what you want to do is, I encourage you to check out the book How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. They kind of show John Buscema's the artist in that book, and it's a classic book. Most every pro I know has that book. It's kind of like, for many of us, the first, the biggest, the best of all the instructional books on how to draw comics. So many of us learn from that. I know I still have my copy somewhere. Haven't seen it in a while, but I'm sure I got it in a box somewhere. Haven't seen it since the move. Let's see. But it shows kind of how you distinguish, how you take real life and then you take it to that mighty Marvel manner. How you just kind of how you would want to exaggerate the figure, how you would want to render the figure. So it's kind of finding that balance between real life and the exaggeration that has become to be so prevalent in comics. I like comics because we can walk that line between photorealistic, like your Alex Ross, to the like wildly cartoony, like a Scotty Young, and everything in between. You know, so I really enjoy that there's such diversity and variety of styles in any given comic or character, oftentimes, and that's really fun. So it really is partly just kind of your approach to how you want to translate real life into your comic book style and how you want to render your shadows, how you make your lines, your shapes, things like that. It's really, in many ways, up to you. That's another thing I love about comics is because we have our own styles, we can all have varying styles, is that your approach is your approach. And you hone it, you experiment with it, and it evolves. I know my work has evolved over the past many years and will hopefully continue to evolve. We're going to do that glowing repulsor ray in this hand as well. So just leaving a little bit of space from the red orange to the repulsor portal, and then dabbing in the yellow and then just kind of schmoozing it towards that center, leaving that very center white for that white hot repulsor ray up. So I didn't realize part of the fingers were off the board there, or screen. Let's see, another question here on Instagram. So have any tips on how to draw hands? That's something you struggle with the most. A lot of people struggle with drawing hands. That is true. It's a very common thing. Now, I embraced hands as a young kid, so I always found them to be fun to draw, expressive. I mean, I didn't draw them perfectly as a kid, but I never felt that they were so difficult that it was a frustration for me. It was just no more frustrating than anything else I had to learn. So I didn't really enjoy drawing hands. I think they're probably some of the most expressive parts of a character to draw. So definitely something you want to focus on. My tips are, again, look at real life whenever possible. Nice thing is, if you're an artist, you are probably drawing with your hands and you have reference with you at all times, which is a benefit. With that being said, look into life drawing books and look at how they kind of break them down. Study some of your favorite artists. Look at how they draw hands. I know I did that when I was young, you know, with my favorite artists, you know, Arthur Adams, Rick Leonardi, Walter Simonson. Dad, nabbit. Got a little crazy with the yellow, so apparently I accidentally stuck my hand in the yellow. Now, nice thing about watercolor is that water is our eraser. So I'm going to be able to kind of rescue what happened here. Just got a little yellow in places I don't want no yellow. We just saturate in the yellow or the water here, clear water, clean water. Fortunately, we're in the early stages, so a lot of this will be covered up by the other shades of red that are coming. And do pay attention where you put your hand, apparently. Then you can come in with your paper towel. You can dab out that extra water. Just got to be very careful that you don't tear the paper by the oversaturation. And if you can catch it early enough while the paint is still wet, you're able to pull it out that color without sacrificing the art. So there we go. Quick rescue. Just had a quick rescue there. A little bit there on that part I want to leave white. Just I see a little faint yellow. Just want to pull that yellow out. And there we go. So back to work. So yeah, so with drawing hands, learning those basic shapes. Learn those basic shapes and then kind of study how they kind of bend around. It's like a series of boxes and cylinders and kind of like trapezoidal shapes. Make sure I'm still on screen on both feeds there. Using a piece of little cardboard here to rest my hand on so I don't accidentally put my hand through wet paint. Still just doing the initial layer of red here, starting light, and we're going to work our way darker. Working our way darker. So this is not the finished red for Iron Man. It's just kind of our base light color. Now I need to slide the art up here so that the YouTube viewers can see what's going on here for the feed. And if you're watching on one feed, come check me out on my other feed. If you're watching on Instagram, come watch the YouTube feed so you can see it from a different angle. And same for the YouTubers. Come to my Instagram account and watch the IGTV feed, where you can see pretty much the art from top to bottom. We're just going to let the color here just kind of fade out towards his boots and stuff. The boots just kind of fade out into the mists of time and technology. Almost done with this reddish orange. Then we're going to come in with some more, with a darker red, a more true red, to really get that vibrancy of color. Just add a little more water here for the fade to the bottom there. So it goes from one shade of red, or that reddish orange, and kind of fading out there. So got the initial shade of red down, and now I've got some regular red. I'm using Scarlet Lake is the shade of red that I'm working with here. So I keep a little test strip of watercolor board that I do my test palette on, so I can test out the colors. And so now I'm going to go over everything prior, start to put in this more vibrant red, but keeping in mind the lighter shade of reddish orange I've dropped in as a kind of like the building towards a highlight color. I'm going to add some more water here to this shade of red as it merges towards that yellow there, so we don't lose that nice glowy fade. So that's the nice thing about watercolor, is adding more water can be the trick, one of the tricks you use to achieve some of the effects, to get that blending going. How we can kind of schmooze the color around. So now that gauntlet is really starting to come at us there. It's like the colors are starting to pop. We're starting to get some cool effects as the watercolor dries. You can always add a second layer, and just a little bit of a second coat there. Or you might want to punch up some color, because we're working from light and going to dark. Let's see. Are we still good on Instagram here? I hope that call didn't mess up the feed there. What is the brand of brush I'm using? I'm using a Grumbacher brush. Grumbacher paints and a Grumbacher brush. This is the Goldenedge, the Goldenedge round brush. The, what was it? It's the 4620 round brush. I really like it. It's a newer brush I've gotten, and it works, really has upped my watercolor game a bit. Now, when I was doing watercolor a bit more casually, I was just using not so quality brand of brush. You know, it was a cheaper brand of brush. I wasn't ready to invest in a more expensive brush. Fortunately, I found these on sale at, I believe it was at Aaron Brothers craft stores. They are now been absorbed by Michael's craft stores. So at least here in California, Aaron Brothers doesn't exist anymore. But they are now part of Michael's. I think they have a lot of Michael's craft stores across the country. I know they have them back in Texas, my home state. So I got these on sale, and I really liked them. Finally busted them out and started using them, and definitely have noticed a difference in the quality of the brush. Really made a difference in my painting. I got used to using a subpar brand of brush. I mean, they're okay. You know, you can go to I got like a just kind of they had like this pack of brushes for $10, and they were adequate brushes. They got the job done, and I got used to it. I mean, I didn't know any better, so I was just using an inexpensive brand of brush because I wasn't really ready to invest in better brushes. I was learning with subpar brushes because I didn't know the difference, and that was okay at that time. But once I felt like I was ready to level up, once I did, I noticed the difference in the brush. Like I was ready now for a higher quality brush, and I really have enjoyed it. This is like I don't know, like a $20 brush or so, something like that. I got it a while ago, so I can't remember the exact price, but definitely the one brush costs more than like twice as much as I paid for that $10 pack of brushes. But so what my point is here is it's okay to use cheaper art tools when starting out. And if you can master the cheap art tools, when you level up to the more expensive art tools, you will see a difference. It's like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, if you can get good at playing basketball and wearing Converse All-Star sneakers like they did in the 1950s, when you upgrade to some Air Jordans, you're going to feel the difference. But you got good at using at wearing the Chuck Taylor All-Stars. So when you graduate to that higher quality shoe, high performance shoe, you're going to feel and notice the difference. And it's like, now you can believe you can fly. I don't know, maybe that analogy is a bit wibbly wobbly there, but I'm no stranger to the wibbly wobbly, as we know. All right, let's tackle a question here on the YouTubes. What type of watercolors am I using? I'm using the Grumbacher Academy. Let's see. Thanks for all the comments, gang. Yes, I have been away for a while. I've been very busy with just everyday life stuff as well as work projects. I've been doing a lot of covers for Marvel. They just announced a series of covers I'm doing that are coming out in November. They are these headshot covers. They've announced 3 of them. There will be many more to come, many more to be announced. But so far they've announced my Cersei from the Eternals cover for Eternals issue 1, my Spider-Woman cover, and my Spider-Man cover. Spider-Man is issue 52. Spider-Woman, I believe, is issue 5, maybe 6. I can't quite remember. But those are the first 3 that they have announced for sure. I'm not sure if they've announced any of the others, so I can't really say just yet. I don't want to get ahead of Marvel. But those are some of the things I've been working on, as well as some other covers like for Walmart exclusive variants, like my X-Men Empire #1 variant. That's now in Walmart stores. So if you shop at Walmart, check out their comic book section, and you can hopefully snag my X-Men Empire variant. So if you stay tuned to any of my social media feeds, anytime a cover or project is announced, you're going to see my my sharing what Marvel has shared. But rule of thumb is don't get ahead of your publisher. So I can't share I don't like to share anything until Marvel says first. So if you stay tuned to my social media, you should be able to keep up to date with where you can find me in the comic shops, or occasionally the big box stores. What do I think about Koh-i-Noor pencils? Koh-i-Noor is a great brand. I think I might even still have some here in my studio. Yeah, Koh-i-Noor's been around for ages, and definitely a product I've enjoyed for sure. So you work at an art supply store and you compare it to a Stradivarius violin. To the beginner, the brush won't make a difference, but a master can make it miles. Yeah, a master can go a long way with it, yeah. And that's why we practice, so we can master our craft, absolutely. So yeah, if you're a beginner, the higher quality might be lost on you. So you know, you practice with the beater brush, and then when you graduate to that Stradivarius, your mastery will meet the high quality of that brush or that instrument, that tool. But I mean, a beginner can, you know, learn with a Stradivarius that they want. Absolutely. It's not like they're exclusive or anything like that. Like, you can't use a higher quality or more expensive art tool if you're not ready for it. You absolutely can. I just figured, why spend the money on a Stradivarius? I'll get my beater violin, learn how to get adept with that so that I can make the most of a Stradivarius when I finally get that opportunity. I'm sure there are even higher quality art brushes for watercolor than what I'm using here, I would imagine. And maybe one day I'll level up to those. But this Grumbacher brush, really happy with the results. But great point there. Great point, Brandon. See how, oops, sorry gang, here on YouTube, I need to slide the artwork up a little bit. Make sure we're on, where's my OBS feed? Okay, cool. Want to make sure we're on screen for the YouTube audience. The Instagram audience pretty much gets the entire figure here on IGTV. Check out a YouTube question. Or an Instagram question, I'm so sorry, Instagram. Let's see. What Iron Man am I making here? This Iron Man is from the 1980s, 1986. When I was a kid, Iron Man switched to this armor, and I just thought it was the coolest. It's called the Silver Centurion armor. That he wore from like 1986 to, I want to say about close to 1989, roughly 88, 89. Definitely he wore this when he was a member of the West Coast Avengers. I think this kind of was a result of the 1980s Iron Man armor wars. So in the early to mid 80s, James Rhodes had become the current Iron Man because Tony Stark was having some serious problems and could not fulfill the role of Iron Man. So he passed the torch on to James Rhodes, who was Iron Man when I started reading comics as a kid in the 1980s. So then I think the Iron Man or the Iron Wars storyline happened, and Iron Man or Tony Stark stepped back into the role as Iron Man. And when he did, he debuted this all-new armor, which is nicknamed the Silver Centurion armor, because it's yellow or red and silver instead of red and gold. And we'll be working in some silver colors here on all these, on his face and arms and legs here, and coming up very soon. So yeah, so that's what this one is called. It's known as, in the comic book universe, as the Mark VI, I believe. That classic 70s, 80s red and gold one is called the Mark V, I believe, and this one would be the Mark VI, if I'm remembering correctly. If there are any Iron Man historians watching right now, feel free to chime in to let me know what I have right or wrong in regards to this. Iron Man 199 and 200 are must-reads. I don't think I read those, so I will have to go look them up. I mean, if they're must-reads, then I must read them. So one thing, so we're here at this other lit-up repulsor ray. So after I placed my red, I'm coming in with just the water, so it can blend towards that yellow and orange hybrid there. So I don't want it to be a hard cut of color. I want it to have a nice gradation. So sometimes I can come in here with just put down a little bit of paint, come over it with a little bit of water, and get that fade from red to orange to yellow. All right, let's take care of the boots. So I'm going to have to slide this up a little bit more. Just put down that initial paint in the bold areas where I want the red, and then I can kind of schmooze it around to fade, maybe come in with just a little bit of water and schmooze this paint down to fade to white, because there's a little bit of a gradation going there. We'll do the same to this other boot. We'll tackle some more questions. So sorry I can't respond to everyone's question. I know that there's probably a lot coming through that I'm missing. I do apologize for that. Watercolor does take up a lot of my attention, maybe even more so than my my pencil, ink, or Copic work. But I do appreciate y'all posting. Hopefully the more adept I get at live streaming my watercolors, I'll be able to keep up with questions and comments a little bit better. And you expect to see any published work from me soon. Those covers I mentioned coming out in November, those headshot covers, those series of Marvel headshot covers, and some covers are already debuting now, like the X-Men Empire #1 variant exclusively at Walmart. You can find that. It's out on stands now, so if you're ever at Walmart, stop by there, wherever they keep the comic books, and you can hopefully track down my X-Men variant, the Empire storyline. So yes, you can expect to see those. COVID-19 has, where'd my paper towel go? There we go, back. Has kind of paused certain books in the industry, so hopefully some of the stuff I've done prior to COVID-19 will see print in the not too distant future. All right, now I'm going to create just a little bit of a darker shade of red here. I'm just going to take some of my red here. I'm off screen. Just take a little bit of my phthalo blue, trying to create a darker shade of red. Just kind of like a bit of a burgundy, as you can see there on my test palette right there. So I'm going to just kind of come in and add this as, actually I should make a little bit more because we have a lot of Iron Man here to cover. So a little more red, a little more phthalo blue, just a very little bit of phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is a powerful blue. And if you're not careful, it will just totally overpower whatever color you're trying to make a shadow color of. I really like phthalo blue because it's such a vibrant blue. So it's one of my favorites. Now I'm going to come in with just a little bit of this darker red, and just in certain areas just kind of drop in this burgundy kind of color just for some like little shadow cuts. Not going to use a lot, but just certain places I want to create a little bit of depth. You have a little more contrast. Like right there on the helmet. Just considering the shape. Consider the shape of the thing that you're illustrating. And then you can kind of imagine. And it takes practice, mind you, it takes practice. I've been practicing this my whole life. I did not draw like this when I was a child or a teen or even a young adult. This is just the result of a constant evolution, and who knows where my evolution will go from here. So, but you know, if you've taken an art class in school, like if you had to do, you know, a lot of people get to take art as an elective, or in some way, a lot of people encounter this if they took art at school, where they have you shade, that you draw a sphere, and they have lights on the sphere, and it's, you know, it's sitting on a little pedestal, and they have lights on it, and you shade it, and you find out where the light's hitting, where the shadow is, and you render out this sphere or ball. That's all it is for these muscles or the helmet or the fingers. It's all just utilizing that one exercise of shading a sphere. It's that same mentality, because every shape has its top and sides and bottom. Even if it's a circle, a sphere. It still has its top. It has, as we perceive it, its tops, its sides, and its bottom. And you can consider where your light source is and how to render it. So, so all this darker red I am considering as a shadow color that I can put on the opposite side of wherever the light is coming from, or whatever is covering up things, like his arm and this armpit area heading down towards the torso, or the abdomen. I'm going to put that darker color in there to help create the shape and form. And so each section, each muscle grouping or aspect of his body is its own sphere. And I say that with air quotes. I just can't do the air quotes because my hand is holding the artwork and my brush. So you have to imagine the air quotes, please. It is creating that each section is its own sphere that I can then render, and they all kind of come together to make one larger image, if that makes sense. So always keep in mind, where's the light coming from, and thusly, where would the shadows be? And most of the time is wherever the light cannot get to, or on the opposite side of the light source. All right, let's add some shades here to his lower half. And his boots. And then we might be ready to go to Silvertown. You always see Iron Man suits as extremely tricky to draw. Whilst Pertasio covered a Heroes Reborn Iron Man had your brain like exploding. Yes, Iron Man's armors have gotten progressively more intricate with every year, every decade. Nowadays, I find if they make an action figure of that specific Iron Man armor I need to draw, it's easier if I just buy that action figure and I can use it as reference to see how do the plates of his armor change by looking at it at a different angle. Totally agree that the armors have gotten very intricate and difficult to draw if you're not used to it. The more practice, the more I practice, the less I need to look at the reference, because I've trained my brain how to kind of figure out that puzzle of the of any given specific armor. Sometimes they don't have an action figure of it, and I just have to just kind of look at as much reference from different angles that it might have been drawn at, so that I can do my rendition of that armor. A little bit of red, that burgundy up there, because my hand bumped into it. So just coming in with some water here. And then with a little paper towel, wipe away. Clean that spot out. All right, so I think we're good red-wise for now. Might come in with a little more later on. But right now, let's get ready to do some silver. Render this silver. Now I have pre-made my silver color by utilizing my phthalo blue, my shade of a little bit of the yellow, a little bit of the cadmium yellow, the little bit of the scarlet. I mean, just the tiniest drop of cadmium yellow, just the tiniest drop of the scarlet lake red, but mostly my phthalo blue and some black to create a color that will end up being my silver color. Actually need to water that down a bit more. I want to start off light. With Copics, I like to work from dark to light. With watercolors, I like to work from light to dark. I'm gonna just lightly start to drop in this, what will be perceived as our silver color. It'll be very subtle. It'll be very subtle here. And I'm still taking Q&A, so if you have any questions, please feel free to post. Just trying to keep up with the questions as they come up through the live feed. So it's difficult to scroll back and forth and discern which questions are available. So I do apologize for that. Have I used watercolor pencils with water? I have not, but I would like to try that. It seems cool. I know those exist, but I haven't used them yet. I did do an illustration. It's on my YouTube channel. I did this like years and years ago. It was the Ultron, the MCU Ultron, where it was this graphite pencil. I think it was very similar to like a watercolor pencil, where I just went in, I smudged in the graphite pencil, then took my water and brush and schmoozed all that graphite around to create a grayscale illustration of Ultron. And but that's the closest I've gotten to using a tool, a medium like that. Now we're going to put this silver here through his helmet. I'm considering again the planes of the helmet, the faceplate, the shapes, the angles, like the forehead, leaving the sides of the head open, much like in the sections of his red, how I have those open areas on the very outside. Putting a little darker here underneath his eyes, and under this, what we would consider his nose indentation, just to kind of start to give the faceplate some life, some color and shape. I guess that would be an even better way of putting that. As you see here with his arm here, I put more of the paint on the inside here because this arm's more tucked into close to his body, so less light is going to get there. What watercolor paper is this? This is the Strathmore 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. All right, well, we're going to put some silver through his legs here. So using my lines as kind of a guideline. Starting off light. Letting the highlight kind of run down the center of his thigh and his muscles. And then because his leg turns, it bends down, we can have a little more shadow on his knee on down to his shin to help convey that angle. Hopefully that was on screen, YouTubers. YouTube viewers, apologize if that wasn't, but I was just adding some right here through. Yeah, it looks like I was out of view there, but we'll make sure that doesn't happen with the other knee. Just keeping in mind, each chunk of his leg muscle is like that sphere I was mentioning before. I think of them as their own shape to be rendered. And with that, I can put the color in as necessary, get that highlight in as necessary. or the shadows as necessary. And I can experiment with that, you know. A lot of it's just trial and error. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's an opportunity to learn. Trust me, I've done it all my life. All my life. Been making mistakes and learning from my mistakes. Because my dad gave me the permission to do that, which is one of the great things I appreciate that my dad taught me at a young age, is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Because if you learn from your mistake, it's not a mistake. I mean, it is a mistake in the moment, but if you learn from it, you can adapt, you can grow, you can level up. What's the point he was trying to make? So don't be afraid of making mistakes. I talk to so many young artists, oh, I'm afraid to color my work because what if I mess it up? You might. You might very well mess it up. But if you don't try, then you'll never get a chance to learn, grow, and level up and master your skills. So that's my takeaway is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Yes, you might ruin some art. Trust me, I've ruined art. I've ruined illustrations. All my life. All my life. Heck, I almost ruined this one with, you know, running my hand through the yellow. You know, it just happens. It's just called being human, and that's okay. It's okay. Just keep trying. Don't be afraid to mess up a drawing, because it more than likely will happen, because everybody does it. Every pro you see out there that you follow on social media, you read their comics or watch their cartoons or play their video games, they have all screwed up illustrations. We still screw up illustrations, even as professionals, because we are human beings. And you're a human being too, and it's okay. It is okay. Don't let fear stop you. Please don't let fear stop you. Or at least the fear of making a mistake stop you. Embrace it. Learn. That's a learning moment. Just like Yoda told Luke Skywalker. Failure can be our greatest teacher. Was the point he was making? I forgot. You know, I can't remember exactly how he said it in his Yoda speak. But I want to encourage you, young artists. I'm coming in with a slightly darker shade of this silver to start to create a little more depth, a little more contrast from to go over these light areas. If I feel it's a little too dark, I can always dab it a little bit, very cautiously, very carefully. And that has come with trial, error, practice. So that's the Todd Nauck way. That's the Todd Nauck way. If you want to, a lot of people ask, how do I learn what you have done? Well, 1, thanks for watching my videos. 2, make your mistakes. I have pretty much subscribed to the Indiana Jones way of thinking. I make it up as I go along. I've been doing it all my life. I want to make comic books. I'm 14 years old. I want to make comic books. How do I make comic books? I don't know. It's 1985. There's no internet to teach me how to do this. Well, I'll just look at my favorite comic books and do what I think they did. And I just made it up as I went along. Bought my first tablet a few years ago so I can start doing illustration, digital illustration. Start incorporating that into my work. How do I do this? I'll figure it out as I go. I'll learn as I go. I'm all about just giving it a try, giving it a whirl. Make a mistake. Did I learn from it? I learned this. Cool. Keep moving forward. Don't forget that lesson. Like my lesson of remember to slide the artwork up so that it's always on camera on the YouTube feed. Apologies, gang. So hopefully that's an encouragement to some of you young artists out there, or some of you newer artists or up-and-coming artists trying to figure out, well, how do I do this? I'm afraid of messing up. I'm afraid to ink my pencils because what if I mess it up? Don't worry too much about that. One nice thing is that you can make if you have access to a scanner and you can scan in the art, scan in your pencils, then you can print them out in non-photo blue lines and you can practice your inks over those. so that if you do mess up, you haven't messed up the original. Now, I didn't have that luxury back in the 80s and 90s when I was trying to learn and break in. Actually, what I would do is ink over vellum. Vellum is this type of film, this kind of frosted acetate film that I could put over my pencils and ink that, which I did do that some in my process of learning. But vellum was expensive. It was actually less expensive for me to just screw up a piece of art if I made a mistake and then just draw another one. So so there are different ways of approaching that. Let's get a little darker silver on this knee here, and then see if there are any other touch-ups or any other effects I can do. I still do have my background that I'm going to tackle here in just a moment. We're going to tech out this background with some pen and ink. So that's why we did the background first. And if I didn't reiterate that when I finally turned on my mic here for the YouTube feed, that's the situation there. I think I mentioned that once I turned on the mic, but I was so flustered. Who knows what I remembered to say and didn't say. Just using the paint and the water to sculpt the color. It's kind of my approach, at least for now. I'm sure I'll learn new things and start incorporating those new skills as I go. A little darker here in this part of his bicep because of how it's tucked there so close to his body, this underside of his arm. A little further away from the light, so it gives us a little more shadow. Oh, one thing I need to do is his unibeam. Do we know where the unibeam is? We got Iron Man Anatomy going on right now. The unibeam, as it was called in the 1980s, is his chest portal. That's called the unibeam, apparently. I've been reading West Coast Avengers this summer as some of my fun reading during COVID-19, because I never got to read West Coast, or I didn't get to read all of West Coast Avengers as a kid. I had just random issues as a kid. So now I'm reading it all like in order. I'm about 30 issues in, and I've come to learn that this is called the unibeam. We're just going to put some yellow inside there. It's not quite glowing like his repulsor rays are, so he hasn't really kind of powered up the unibeam yet. It's kind of like it was like his big move. You know, he'd be out there, you know, firing off repulsor rays and things like that, and then it's like that was the big finishing move, is he'd unleash the unibeam and just totally blast his opponent away. All right, so got some light yellow. Now we're just going to come in with a little bit of a more vibrant yellow, a little darker, just around the perimeter. Just to kind of give a sense of a little bit of a glow, but not glowing quite like those, not so much that it glows all the way into the red of his armor. Mainly because I established the dark parts of his pectoral muscles, like in the comic book design. If I hadn't done that, maybe I would have gone for more of a glowy unibeam chest portal. But lesson learned. That's just one of those moments. Lesson learned. All right. So just kind of looking things over here. We got the reds, got the silvers. I think I might put a little bit darker silver. I'm going to create a little bit of a darker shade of my silver, just to kind of come in there and add just a little more shadow, just to give it a little more kick. If I can use a cooking term in that regard, just a little more kick. How we doing, YouTube and Instagram viewers? See if there are any questions. Tips for better line quality. You feel your line quality is a bit sloppy. Well, You know, it's probably, I mean, it varies from person to person. I don't know if I can make an exact recommendation, because I don't know how your art is, but it sounds like, just from my own imagination, what I'm imagining you're talking about, just based on my own experience, is you know, it just takes practice to develop that that hand control, the hand control of your inking. I'm assuming you're referring to inking line quality, as opposed to pencil sketching line quality. So I'm going to go with that sort of mentality as where you might be coming from. So yeah, it takes practice to develop that control. It took me practice. It took me a lot of practice to get that sort of line control, to get that hand control, so that I could develop those confident line weights that I wanted. So it's really just continued practice. I do have a inking exercise video here on my YouTube channel. So I know this question came from Instagram, so come to my YouTube channel. The link is in the bio of my Instagram account front page. So be sure to check that out here after this live stream, and come and I have a playlist called Todd Nauck inking videos. Check out that playlist. You'll find my inking exercise video in there, and I show just a few inking exercises to help kind of hopefully develop a little more hand control in the the inking skill techniques. Those are some bunch of wibbly wobbly words there, but that just is going to happen if I'm thinking about the art while trying to think about an in-depth question. Really is using both sides of my brain in a really major way. That's why oftentimes my words kind of come out a little bit jumbly, or my thoughts come out a bit jumbly, because of how I'm using so much of my brain at the same time. Like, it's one thing just to focus on the art. It's another thing to focus on having a conversation. But trying to do both at the same time, it's a bit of a challenge. So I appreciate y'all's grace. Thank you for your understanding as I try to get these thoughts out. So yeah, hopefully that made sense. Come check out my YouTube inking videos in a very specific playlist, and hopefully that will give you some exercises you can use to practice to get better control of your line weights and line confidence. Because really, it's going to come with practice. I really believe mastery comes with study and practice, and you just keep doing it. It's drills, just drilling, going through those drills again and again and again, like an athlete. I've said this before in other videos, like an athlete. An NFL quarterback, you know, they might have a natural talent at throwing a ball, throwing a football, but they practice all the time. They do the same thing over and over and over again, so that when it's game day, you know, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers can just chuck that ball downfield and get it to his receiver to make the big play, and to get it past all those defensive linemen who are out there, defensive backs that are, you know, guarding the receiver. You know, that makes it even more difficult. The strategy it takes, you know, so it's not just I can throw a ball a long way. So many other factors to consider. And so that's the way I think it is with art. You know, we just keep practicing it, because you never know what sort of aspect of what you might be illustrating will require a certain strategy to pull off. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bump that there, Instagram viewers. To achieve that hopefully end goal, you know, so you can score that artistic touchdown. So it's keep practicing. I know people don't like to hear the word, like for us pros to say, well, big part is practice, but it's the truth. I don't want to shy away from the truth, gang. It is practice. You got to keep practicing. Now, for me, practice was I'm just going to have fun drawing every day. And that is practice. I'm just going to keep drawing, keep drawing, keep drawing. Because the more I draw, those are more drops in my bucket, better chance I have of filling up more buckets if I keep putting drops in. And that's how I got better, was by practicing. That's how I hope to continue to get better, is by my continued drawing, which is my continued practice. This illustration here, this is practice for me. This is me having fun, and I'm figuring out things as I go. It's like I'm having an experience here, my brain is remembering this experience, and it will carry this experience into the next illustration, and that one into the next illustration. And it keeps building and building and building. It's like snapping Legos onto, you know, when you start building something, you start figuring out how to fit those Legos together and what kind of cool things you can make. For me, that's the same with art. Like, yeah. So we're letting the art dry here while I ramble on for a bit. So I want to come in and start to tech out the background. This makes for such a fun, cool effect. I've done some watercolor commissions that I will be posting here in the coming weeks once the clients receive their commissions, where I got to do some really fun backgrounds, and I'm really excited for y'all to see those. And it's very similar to what I'm going to be doing here with Iron Man. So I want to just adjust things here. I will continue to try to respond to questions as I go, and responding to questions and comments as I can while we move into this new aspect here of this Iron Man illustration. So we're going to use my drafting tools. We're going to do a little inking here with my Pigma Micron pen. Now I'm using a blue one here to kind of create more of a the black lines for Iron Man. It's kind of like the bulky, like this is what the main foreground image, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. This blue kind of is a little lighter shade than black, so it kind of moves the background a little further back. It's very subtle, but I really like how it works and looks. So I'm going to grab some of the other drafting tools, like my ellipse template and my triangle. I'll be using these, and we're going to start to create kind of like an Avengers compound sort of background for Iron Man here. And we're just going to kind of, like I like to do, make this up as I go along. So just using my T-square, I've got my T-square here. As you can see, I'll just slide this into frame so the YouTube people can see it. So I'm just setting the bottom of the artboard onto the T-square so it lines up nice and flush. In fact, what I want to do is take a little bit of tape. You can do this for yours, illustrations. You have to draw some really technical backgrounds. Once you've got your artwork lined up on your T-square, so everything's perpendicular, so you have as perfect straight up and down lines and side to side lines as possible. Just tape it to the artboard so it doesn't slide and you get off, so you end up drawing a line at an angle that you didn't want to. Oop, that piece of tape is too small. I need a bigger piece of tape. There we go. So just tape down the corners. You can tape down all four. Right now I'm just taping down the top two, and that should be fine. Famous last words. So so now I can just slide my T-square up and down to create all these different vertical lines as needed. So we're just gonna, and then I'll be doing horizontal lines, and then I'll use my triangle to create some vertical lines. So right now I'm just gonna start creating a teched out background. Maybe this is his laboratory, his armory. I like to create some kind of circuitry, kind of deep recess of the inner workings. You know, it's maybe some sort of work, some tech panel, just some real bunched up lines here for kind of a techie sort of vibe. Let me see if we can get the. I'm missing a little bit of the side there, Instagram viewers, so sorry about that. We're going to just carry this all the way across to the other side. Create a little bit of a larger panel. And I like to use angles, not just vertical and horizontal lines, but also angled lines. So I've got these panels here. Throw in some more tech here. Some coils, maybe there's some wires in here. You can get as creative with what you put inside your tech backgrounds as you want. That's starting to give it some environment for Iron Man to exist in. I'm going to carry this on through. One thing you want to be careful of is to make sure the ink is dry so that when you move your drafting tools across it, you don't smear it. So Micron's dry pretty quickly, so I feel I can do this pretty confidently without it smearing, but I still should be very careful. I don't want the famous last word myself. All right, let's put in a circle here. One thing about having this longer hair is that I'm shedding so much. I find these long hairs all throughout my studio, through my drafting table. It's like, oh my gosh, how am I not completely bald yet? Create a portion of a circle there. I'm going to use a slightly smaller circle, and I'm going to create kind of a little divot just to make it kind of a little different sort of shape. Hopefully comes across as interesting. I think it's interesting. I'm going to do a portion of a circle here. Take my triangle. Just slide this down a little bit because my tablet, which is streaming to YouTube, is a little higher up there. Sorry, I'm so focused on the art here, gang, or on the backgrounds. I need to address some characters. Do characters change costumes depending on what era it is? They can. Sometimes it's the era, sometimes it's the storyline. So, yeah, I think, you know, certain characters you see them change their costumes all the time. Iron Man, how many armors does that guy have? Well over 50 over all these years. But Spider-Man, even when he changes his costume, he always seems to go back to the classic red and blues because it's such an iconic look. So, you know, even Captain America, he's changed his uniform a few times, but they always seem to kind of go back to that original classic because some designs just stand the test of time. So, yeah, it varies, I guess, would be my response to that. Depending on the character, the era, the storyline. So many different factors could come into play. Now I like to take a larger circle. Let's see, a bit larger. Kind of line it up as best as possible. And create another level of pattern. Another level of pattern was the other high school band I was in, garage band I was in. Just add some of that teched out wire and circuitry and through here. Just kind of zigzagging the pen inside these circles here. Let's go a little, one circle in. You'll see what I'm kind of creating here once I move the circle template away. And then one more circle in. Create these ridged effects. Create that portal there like that. So this can just be fun to do, and just kind of try to stagger the lines and the shapes. I don't want anything to be too symmetrical or every panel I create to be the same size as the previous ones. Is what I try for. Sometimes it succeeds, sometimes I might miss the mark, but something I try to do. Something I try to keep in mind. Because it varies what the viewer's eye is looking at. And so when you have diversity in sizes, shapes, things like that, creates more for the eye to see. If everything's too similarly sized, try saying that 3 times fast. Try saying that 1 time slowly. It was a challenge as it was. If it's all too similar, it can be kind of stagnant, kind of boring. So we need that kind of diversity in the lines and shapes as much as possible, in my opinion, to give the viewer more to look at. Even if the viewer doesn't really realize what they're seeing, it's still registering on some level. It's that, let's see, my T-square won't go all the way up because of the way I have my camera rigged, so I'm just going to kind of do this by sight, get that panel done. Some tech there. Run a seam down like that. We're just creating a world here for Iron Man to live in. A happy little compound. Happy little Avengers compound. Maybe it's like I said, in his armory. Let's come in with a bigger circle. Come here, bigger circle template. Let's try this. Come in with this big one here. I'm gonna do it like a half circle. That gives us a little bit of a curve there, which could be a nice visual element. And then, like, I brought this line here. I chose to drop it behind these fingers here. I'm very careful that it didn't line up with that part of his finger. That would be a tangent. So that's another thing I keep in mind. Where do the lines intersect with Iron Man? I don't want any line to line up exactly perfectly with any other line. So if I were to do some horizontal lines, I wouldn't want them to line up right directly with the shoulder pad too much, because that's not a pleasing visual graphic element. So these are the things we want to be careful with. I was careful not to put a line here directly through that wrist, because cutting a line that intersects with a joint is jarring. It's just not the best design choice, I guess, was the way I was taught, and I understand that, even though I don't know how to verbalize it as well as I would like. Let's put another circle, a smaller, still sneeze coming on. My apologies, gang. Pardon me. Put a smaller circle inside this larger circle here. Let's put a horizontal line that runs across and down and across. So starting to creating these shapes. How much is too much? You know, that's kind of, again, back to that trial and error. If you're not quite sure, do less, because you can always add more. If you do too many, you can't take it away. So always start with less and then add more as needed. So I'm gonna try not to add too much here. Almost done. Oops, can't quite get the T-square up there because of the camera rig, but I'll just fake it. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. It's been a while since I've got the live stream. Hopefully this has been fun and maybe even educational for you. But hopefully at the very least fun. I know I've been enjoying myself. This is a piece I've been wanting to finish for so long. I'm so glad to finally have this opportunity to do it. Oh, my T-square pulled up that piece of tape. Fortunately, we're almost done here. I've got one more trick I want to do once I finish putting in these blue lines for the background. I will be posting a shot of this on my social media, more than likely today, so make sure you're following me on Instagram and Twitter and the Art of Todd Nauck Facebook page. If you're watching on YouTube, these links are in the video description below, so please do follow me. If you're watching on IGTV, hopefully you'll come and follow my Instagram account. Maybe check out my YouTube channel as well for tons more videos. Like tons. I think I'm probably pushing close to, I'm definitely well over 200 videos. Maybe getting close to 300. So looking pretty good here. I just want to make a few, want to add just a few things. I want to add just a little more detail to this circle pattern here on this side. Just want to kind of dense it up a little bit. Freehand some circuitry in here. There we go. Just kind of helps balance it out because I had so much over here I felt I needed a little more over here. Okay, now one last move. I'm gonna put this cup of watercolor water off of the drafting table so I don't spill it. Because knowing me, I'll knock it off. All right, so I got all the lines dropped in here, the dark lines. Now I want to come in with my triangle and my Uniball Signo white gel pen. Hopefully there's still enough ink in this one. I think should have enough for this one, for this video. I want to come in and I want to put some white highlight lines along many of these lines here to give the sense of like trim. It's like trim to the shapes. So like the light is hitting it and creating this little white highlight on these panels of tech. Oops, actually I see one area I wanted to add a little horizontal line too. I wanted to connect that. There we go. So let's see, I want to put it's like creating these little ridges. It's like these little little seams that run through the tech, you know? It just creates this little extra level of detail that I think can look really cool. I hope you do too. I hope you like what I do here. We're going to run some of this through the circuitry here. Like little lights and blips and bloops. As you can see, it just gives it a little extra something. It's just a little extra pop on the page. It just gives his background just a little extra life. Just these little extra details. Takes a little time to do, but is, I think, so worth it in the end. Just gives the viewer's eye a little bit something more to play with. Anything and everything you can give your viewer to look at is something for their eye to play with. Sometimes less can be more though, so don't think that it always has to be filled up with a bunch of detail. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes having less detail can be the most effective situation, most effective thing one can do for the art. So it all depends on what you're drawing. It's not. This is not one hard, fast rule. Please understand what I'm trying to say there. Not saying that you should always fill your art up with a bunch of detail. Not saying that. But this is a case where Iron Man is a character that is technology based. Tech has a lot of detail because here in the year 2020, if this video survives into the far-flung future and technology is completely different than what we know of it in 2020, there are a lot of circuits and possibly wires and other technological things that would take a scientist to explain. So I want to add that kind of level of detail for a character in an illustration like this. But that's not to say that every illustration should be so heavily detailed. But it works for this environment, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Hopefully that makes sense. Because some of the most beautiful illustrations I've seen in comics have also been very simple illustrations that haven't needed a ton of detail and told a story with just minimal detail. And the artist created such an emotion or experience just by the minimal level of detail. So this is just speaking in regards to this illustration, is what I'm saying. Hopefully that I've made that point abundantly clear. Again, I'm thinking about a lot of things while talking and drawing at the same time. All right, just a little bit more here. Really appreciate y'all hanging out and watching with me, both on Instagram and YouTube. These videos will be on my Instagram channel, or my IGTV channel, as well as the YouTube, on my YouTube channel here, so you can watch the same video in two different perspectives. But I really do appreciate y'all hanging out. I appreciate your support. Thank you for being so patient while you waited for me to schedule and do a new live stream. Like I said, it's been a busy month for me. It might get busier as I move into October, but I will do my best to live stream whenever possible. So make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel and my Instagram so you don't miss out on future art live streams and art video uploads. All right, and there we go. There's the teched out background. Let me put these drafting tools off to the side here. Let me untape Iron Man here. Let me put my T-square away. I want to do one other little thing. One other small little thing. I'm going to continue with my white gel pen here. Just going to drop in some little teeny tiny white highlights into the color there. So what I'm doing, just putting in these little dots. Don't want a ton of them, but just a few little places to create just a little bit of extra eye candy. And it's easy to figure out where to put these because we have this major white highlight because his armor is so shiny. I can just carry these little white highlights down from the white into either the black or the color of his armor. We run a little white highlight here along that collar piece right there, just to give it a little something more. Oh, one thing I love to do with banded metal, and I think this is a cool opportunity to do it, is from the white running this this line through the banded metal to create a little ridge there. Can do it here on this side as well, just a little bit. Here on his gauntlet right there. Maybe on the underside just a little bit. On the belt buckle. Down here on his, what am I doing on the YouTube feed? Just here through the boots, just a teeny tiny bit. All right, that's about enough. That's about enough. Don't want to go so nuts with it that I overdo it. All right, now I can take my my micron. Where's my 0.8 micron? Of course, it's the last one I grab. Put my autograph on here. And today's date that we finally finished this on, which was let's say October the 3rd. So 3 October 2020. And there is Iron Man. I'll have a shot of this on my social media. So please do. I'll probably have that up in the next hour here. So please make sure you're following me on Instagram and Twitter and the Art of Todd Nauck Facebook page. Like I said, if you're watching here on YouTube, you're going to see that here in the video description below. Please, if you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up. Feel free to leave a comment if you watch this on replay. Live viewers, thank you so much for all your comments and questions. I really appreciate it. So sorry I couldn't address them all, or only address a fraction of them. But this did take a lot of my mental power to keep on top of everything. But I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. And if you just discovered my channel, feel free to subscribe. You Instagram viewers, so glad to have you hanging here with me. Hopefully you had fun. Thanks for all the hearts and for all the comments and questions. Make sure you're following me here on Instagram as well. And yeah, I'll have a shot of this on a photo of this on my social media for y'all to see all the details, and you can check everything out. Very excited to have gotten this one done. So much fun to do. I love this armor. So much fun to do a watercolor video again. Finally, I will do more watercolor videos. And yeah, I think that's about it for now. I hope you're having you're staying safe. Hopefully you're staying well. Hopefully we can get through this COVID-19 situation here sooner than later. But thanks for staying strong, everybody. Remember to be kind and gracious to those you encounter, because we're all going through this together, and it's what's going to help us stay united as a people. So I want to wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon. I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing. Keep having fun.